Hi creative friends, this is Freya and thank you so much for being here. So this is part 3 of creating first layers on watercolor paper. Now usually when I make a series, I try to post everything in sequence, but sometimes I just have to let things sit for a while. And this spread took me by surprise. I started off with some hot colors, as I usually do, and then all of a sudden it just turned into a very cool dominated page. So I just had to leave it alone for a while, come back with a fresh perspective, and now I'm going to tackle it. Now, don't worry though, I am going to put these 3 videos in my playlist section, and it's going to be under creating first layers on watercolor paper. I still consider this my first layer because I do have some whites showing through, and whenever that happens, I still look at this as a first layer, even though there is a lot of paint on here. So I set some paints aside. I put a lime green, a phthalo blue, and a cad red light, which is, it reads as an orange. And then I also got some pinky purples out. This is a Liquitex ink. This is my cheap paint from Oaxaca, and I have a pink set aside as well. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these paints, but I think the way I'm feeling right now, I want to go with the cool dominated page. And I'm really loving a lot of this spread over here. Like, there's a lot that's very interesting, and I really want to see where this goes because I have no idea. But what I'm going to do is go in with my blues, and I think I'm just going to kind of put it a little bit thicker than I did in my previous layer. So just kind of like follow some of the marks, but maybe like lay it down thicker. And I'm really loving that. When you juxtapose really watered down paints with a thick application, it really kind of makes for an interesting page. And I hope the camera can pick up on, I mean, probably not all of this, but I'll bring it up closer when I'm done. So I think, let me see here. So normally I gravitate towards the really warm, hot colors. And even though I love cools and I need cools, generally my spreads do tend to be warm dominated. So this spread really took me by surprise, the way it turned out. And I mean, turned out for the first layer, because this is still a first layer. So who knows what might happen later on down the road. But just to reiterate, this is watercolor paper. So watercolor paper tends to be different in many respects, especially the one that I'm using, because I'm using a cold press, and the paints tend to sink into the paper. And so it creates like a very velvety, lush feeling, which I really love. And watercolor papers are so ideal for mixed media. Like, you can just get a whole bunch of different watercolor papers, different weights, and you can get a hot press, a cold press, and then you can make your own art journal from it. Like an art journal / junk journal, because I've done that before and I really love that. So I'm gonna bring in some of those greens now. And see how the paint is pooling up like that? Like, it's just pooling up, but it will sink into the page. And when it sinks into the page, it gives it a really, I'm trying to search for the correct word to describe it, but it's just lush. really delicious. So I'm going to remove these pins because I want to cover up all of the whites. Like I don't want any of the whites to show through. So bringing in this beautiful limey green here. So because it's watercolor paper, I can add like very, very watered down paints. And like, look at that. And I'm gonna blot some of that out because I want the pattern to show through. Like I don't want to cover up the pattern. And now I'm gonna bring in some of my Cad Red Light, which is actually an orange color, but I'm gonna bring in some of that. And orange and blue is like one of my favorite color palettes because it's complementary. They're opposite each other on the color wheel, so it just makes for like a very vibrant kind of a color combination. So I'm gonna bring in some of that orange. And now I think I'm gonna bring in some pinks and purple. Now this is ink. This is Liquitex ink, and I think I'm just gonna like drop it in there. And ooh, this is like really lush and beautiful. So now I've covered up all of the white page. So I am moving out of my first layers now. And I'm just gonna kind of move some of this around here. So I think what I am going to do now is, let me think here. I think I am going to bring in my cashew and just kind of just lighten up some of these areas because I think I need like just a little bit of really light colors here, like a light tone, I mean. So I'm just gonna kind of bring in my cashew and just lighten things up a little bit. And just bring in some of that blue because I still want to keep the blue, but I just want it to be a lighter color. And so I am aware that this looks like a big mess, and that's totally fine. I want it to be messy and juicy and luscious. And now I'm going to bring some of that cashew into the green as well here. And let me see where I can repeat this. So now what I'm going to do is allow this to completely dry. And this is the end of part 3 of creating my first layers on watercolor paper. I think that what I'm going to do is let this dry and come back to it. And so I will do a middle layers on the watercolor paper. And like I said, I will put this series into my playlist section. So that way, like, you know, all these videos can be like, you know, under one kind of like a file, I guess. So you can, like, it's easy to find. So thank you so much for watching till the end of this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.